Welcome to DC Direct. I'm Lionel Donovan. Here in this show, we try to talk about some of the bigger stories, but we want to hear from you. So follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at TRT World. And use the hashtag DC Direct to let us know what you think and be a part of our conversation. In today's show, we're talking about mass shootings in the U.S. On Friday, May 31st, 12 people were killed in a mass shooting in Virginia Beach. It was a horrible tragedy that sent shockwaves across the country. But just a few days later, the event almost disappeared from mainstream news outlets. So what does that say about the U.S.'s attitude towards mass shootings? To find out, let's hear from gun control activist Igor Volsky. What was interesting is that it didn't really stay in the news cycle for very long. What do you think that says about the attitude towards mass shootings here in the U.S. now as opposed to in the past?
Well, it shows just how commonplace these kinds of incidents are, right? The fact that you had 12 people die and it was treated just like another Friday news dump. That's a problem, and it speaks to the problem of what the media prioritizes, what the media thinks people will tune into. And it also speaks to our news cycle today in 2019 that changes by the minute, where news that occurred that morning is not even really talked about on the evening news because 10 other huge stories have broken, right? So I think it's a real combination of factors, but at its core, it really speaks to how ubiquitous gun violence is, and it speaks to how not surprising the stories are.
Since the mass shooting in Virginia, there have already been several more mass shootings in the United States. That's just in the space of a few days. There's no universal definition for a mass shooting, but it is commonly defined as an act of firearm-related violence involving at least 4 victims. Depending on who you listen to, the U.S. has had anywhere from 148 to 182 mass shootings this year. In D.C., lawmakers have continually found themselves at odds over how to deal with gun violence and mass shootings. And as a result, movement on legislation has been slow.
For too long, Congress has ignored the epidemic of gun violence that plagues this country. After a particularly heinous mass shooting, we sometimes pause to offer a moment of silence to honor the victims. But we do not need another moment of silence. We do not need more thoughts and prayers. We need a moment of action.
Today, I think the greatest cruelty in the world is to tell people you will help them in their situation with legislation and then try to pass off legislation that would do nothing to fix the problems that you claim to fix. In legal terms, that's called fraud.
Many researchers have linked the vast amount of mass shootings in the U.S. to the easy access to guns and the lack of legislation that controls gun sales. To put things in perspective, the population of the United States sits at around 326 million, but there are over 393 million guns in the U.S. In simple terms, for every 10 people in the U.S., there are 12 guns available.
You look at almost all of the science out there, and what it has found, controlling for all other factors, is that where there are more guns, there are more gun deaths of every kind. Mass shootings, suicides, everyday gun violence, police shootings, both you shooting at police and police shooting at you. So we know that access to firearms is really a key factor to how many gun deaths are you going to see.
Let's head down to Virginia Beach to speak to community members who have been at the heart of this tragedy to see how they feel about gun control in the U.S. Well, now we're here at Rock Church International, where a memorial is being held to remember the 12 people who were killed in the Virginia Beach mass shooting. Let's hear from some of the attendees to see what they think and what should be done in order to address mass shootings in the U.S.
This is a mental health crisis, every bit as much as it is a gun reform crisis. We have to put more money and effort into mental health reform. And frankly, everyone talks about thoughts and prayers. We need our prayers answered, and that's by action.
You don't need a lot of assault weapons and stuff like that to modify like the military has. You're in a neighborhood, you're amongst family and friends. You don't need all that type of weapon to protect yourself.
Especially with the silencer or suppressor, that something needs to be done to outlaw that.
It hits close to home because you never think it will be us, but of course the unfortunate always happens, and we can only grow stronger from whatever happened to us.
It seems like every time that there is a mass shooting somewhere, it is related to mental health. So I would like to see stronger mental health laws too.
I have heard about, read about, it was just something that was unforeseen. I don't see how a law could have prevented it when he probably broke many laws and policies to begin with.
I wish I could say that somewhere I felt like it would be the last. I don't think that without a clear action, clear plan for the future, I don't know what's going to stop it from happening again.
You know, Virginia Beach, it's a resort city. We have a lot of events coming up over the summer months. I think the best way for us to do that is to go out and be in the community, go and enjoy those things that we're used to doing over the summer.
Gun control is a huge issue in the U.S., but it doesn't create a single issue voting base, and politicians rarely use gun control as a way to rally support. Many people want to see stricter gun control laws, but unless politicians get involved, it's unlikely that legislation will change. Well, that's all the time we have today in DC Direct, but please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at TRT World, and use the hashtag DC Direct to let us know what you think. Can anything be done to address mass shootings, or are they simply a part of life here in the U.S.? Until next time, I'm Lionel Donovan.